Welcome back to Day 18 of the Explainer. We're initializing our cybersecurity command center today to decode the absolute core identifiers of all network communication. We're talking static IPs, dynamic IPs, and MAC addresses.
Here's our agenda for today's mission. First up, network communication basics. Then we'll look at static IP addresses, dynamic IP addresses, and hardware MAC addresses. Finally, we'll dive into cybersecurity and forensics and wrap it all up with our Day 18 course summary.
All right, Section 1, Network Communication Basics, the digital real estate model.
So before we can actually track down a network threat, we really need to understand how devices find each other in this massive digital landscape. Think of an internet protocol, or IP address, as literally the digital mailing address for your device. It operates at the network layer to route data, and it directs all this information across the globe using either the standard 32-bit IPv4 format or the vastly larger 128-bit IPv6 format.
Moving on to Section 2, Static IP Addresses, Fixed Network Infrastructure. Okay, let's dive right into our first type of digital real estate. A static IP is manually assigned, and it stays fixed over time. It doesn't change. This is absolutely crucial for things like reliable remote access, hosting web servers, or keeping secure, uninterrupted connections to equipment like CCTV security cameras.
And this setup brilliantly illustrates exactly why that fixed nature matters. A workstation connecting to a static IP has a direct, permanent communication pathway right to a web server. It doesn't need some third-party server to constantly reassign its location. It's fixed, it's dependable, and it's always right where you left it.
Which brings us to Section 3, Dynamic IP Addresses, Automatically Assigned Addresses. Now, assigning fixed addresses to millions and millions of everyday internet users, that just isn't scalable with our limited number of IPv4 addresses. And that's exactly where dynamic IPs come into play. Instead of a permanent home, dynamic IPs act way more like temporary hotel rooms. They're basically leased to your device automatically for a specific chunk of time by a DHCP server. That stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol.
What we're looking at here is a real-world DHCP server configuration dashboard. This is where network admins manage entire pools of IP addresses. They set lease times and configure automatic network assignments. Also, you and I can just seamlessly connect to Wi-Fi at a coffee shop without doing any manual setup. It handles the whole shebang behind the scenes.
Comparing the two side by side, we get a really clear distinction. While static IPs offer that rock-solid stability required for hosting services, dynamic IPs actually provide vastly better security and significantly lower costs for your standard home users. And that's largely because their digital location just keeps changing over time.
All right, Section 4, Hardware MAC Addresses, the physical fingerprint. So while IP addresses act as these changeable mailing locations, we still need a reliable way to permanently identify the actual physical hardware itself. Enter the MAC address. A Media Access Control, or MAC address, is a unique 48-bit hexadecimal identifier. It's structured in 6 groups of 2 hex digits, and it's literally burned into the network card by the manufacturer to facilitate local network communication.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. Your IP address is a logical, changeable location provided by your internet service provider or your local DHCP server. Your MAC address, on the other hand, is physical. It is the permanent VIN number of your specific hardware. No two are exactly alike.
Next up, Section 5, Cybersecurity and Forensics, Tracking the Threat. Now that our fundamental tracking modules are online and making sense, let's see how law enforcement and security teams actually use these addresses out in the field. When a network breach, an illegal file-sharing incident, or a targeted phishing attack happens, how do forensic experts actually hunt down the perpetrator?
Well, digital forensic investigators follow a highly structured process. First, they analyze server logs to link the online activity directly to an IP address. Next up, they track the malicious traffic patterns and comb through email metadata. And finally, they carefully correlate timestamps. This lets them build a rock-solid legal case based entirely on digital evidence.
What's truly fascinating here is the level of complexity involved. Cybercriminals operating on a static IP are fairly easily pinpointed because, well, the address is fixed. But those hiding behind dynamic IPs, that's a different story. That requires investigators to match exact server timestamps with the ISP's leasing records. They literally have to identify exactly who was leasing that specific, temporary IP at that precise second in time. And that brings us to Section 6,
Day 18 Course Summary, Mission Debrief.
Let's lock in what we've learned in the Command Center today. We established that static IPs are permanent, manual digital addresses that are absolutely perfect for servers. Dynamic IPs are temporary assignments handed out by a DHCP server for everyday end users. And MAC addresses? Those are the permanent hardware fingerprints used for local communication and enforcing strict access controls.
As we close out Day 18 of the Explainer, I want you to consider this. With literally every connection logging your assigned IP and your permanent MAC address, just how visible is your own digital footprint to those who know how to look? Thanks for hanging out and learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next Explainer.